Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Stratosphere Studio. I'm your host, Bill Whittle, and it is Monday, the 17th of October of 2022, which is shocking to me. I really thought we'd be a little further along than that by now. In any event, I hope everybody's been well. We had to miss the show last week. I am in super crunch time for this series I'm working on for Daily Wire, and it's eaten all of my spare time, but hide everybody on YouTube and people watching and Twitch and to all the ships at sea. So the honest truth is I haven't had a chance to do an awful lot of stuff on the sci-fi thing since I've been working so intently on this Daily Wire thing for about the Soviet secret police. However, there's a couple things to talk about, and I did manage to poach a couple of hours of time today and put together something new to show you guys. Greetings from Coeur d'Alene. Hey, Scott Miller. It's maybe my favorite place in the whole wide world. So I'll get to that in just a second. Just kind of let this steep a little bit, let things kind of get going. It has been a really crazy, hectic couple of weeks, or a couple of months really for me, in any event. One of the things we'll talk about, I got something to show first, but when we get back, I think I probably want to concentrate a little bit on the fact that Rings of Power is done with the first season. Apparently, they'll be back in 2025, I think 25, I heard. Durham, England. Hello, Baxter McTavish. What a cool name that is. And I want to talk about it a little bit. I will be doing, I always talk about what I will be doing. I will be doing a segment on this called why ROP was DOA, why Rings of Power was just such a appalling, catastrophic failure. So I'm going to kind of rehearse that out a little bit and just talk about a couple of things. Usually helps to talk these things over, kind of clarifies it in my head. I also have, because I've been so consumed by writing these scripts, I'm also working on a firewall for simple one called Understanding Our National Anthem. When I was doing the research for the Soviet secret police thing, the socialist song, the communist song called the Internationale, and I took a look at that. I'd heard the tune many times, usually sung in French, and I looked at the lyrics of that thing, and that is a bloodthirsty, unbelievably vile song. I mean, really, it's about nothing but murder, really murder. And then I decided, there's so many people. Well, number one, a lot of people don't even know the words to the national anthem. A lot of people obviously know the words and have sung it many, many times, and it gets to be automatic, and you don't even think about what you're saying. So I thought I would just I've started work on it. It's called Understanding the National Anthem, and thing I like about the national anthem is it is an exceedingly hopeful song. It's a song about hope, and while there are, I think, 4 stanzas, we only sing the first one, which I like, because if you just look at the national anthem as one stanza song, it's a question. The whole first stanza is a question, and I think that's where it ought to end, right there, because the question is never really answered. In any event, that's something that we've got going on and working on and so on. Okay, so I am going to play something for you. I want to say it's about 7 minutes, I guess. I felt like after a number of these episodes, we started the second channel and everything was booming, and then I just simply had to. I didn't have any choice anymore. I had to jump off the rails and go to getting this other thing done for the slave drivers over at Daily Wire. It's always a pleasure to work with. And I have some ideas for some future stuff for them too. But I was able to scrape together some time to put together something about science fiction, pop culture, and so on. Last time we did did a piece on Space Engine, on kind of understanding Space Engine. It was about an hour long, I think. A lot of people liked it. I liked it very much too. This one's only about 7 minutes, but there are some modifications to Space Engine that I've used, and I think that they are fantastic. So I will post this as a separate standalone thing on the second channel, but I think now might as well just roll it out to the regulars here and the true believers. So like I said, about 7 minutes, but I think it'll be pretty much self-explanatory. So as soon as this is over, I will be right back. We'll go to the Stratosphere Studio screen, and then we'll roll the clip. Actually, you know what? We'll just roll the clip right now. Well, last week, as you recall, for you Lost in Space fans, we took an initial look at Space Engine, which is available on Steam, and in the interim, I have added a couple of things to it. These are plugins that are available in the workshop section of the Space Engine page. So to install the plugins for the new rendering on the planets, we have to go to the Steam page for Space Engine, which is this page right here, and we want to go to Workshop. This is amazingly easy to do. So these are all different plugins that people have created for Space Engine. Some of them are great, some of them not so great. The two that we're interested in are Rodrigo's mod for gas giant clouds, which we will simply click on. And when we do that, we click subscribe, and once you click subscribe, it's automatically launched. And the other one we want is also from Rodrigo. Right below that, it's Rodrigo's mod for terrestrial planets. And again, just click the subscribe button, and that's all you have to do. When you fire up Space Engine the next time, those will be in place, and you will see, as we're about to discover, some really, really remarkable improvements in what Space Engine can deliver. And then I also took a look at a video that described improvements to the overall visual look of Space Engine, which are set in Space Engine. So we'll include links to that video below if you want to tweak the settings. So I did, and here's the results that we got. So let's start with a quick tour of the solar system with the old settings. Here's Mercury as it exists with the out-of-the-box things. Here's Venus. There's the Earth. There's the Moon, Mars. That's Ceres. Here's Jupiter. Here's Io from Jupiter. Here's Saturn, and I moved around a little bit so you could see the way that the light moves through the rings. Again, these are the out-of-the-box settings for Space Engine, and I think we're going to make some big improvements on these. I just wanted to show you kind of before and after. So here's Uranus, Neptune. For some reason, Pluto's maps are crummy. That's Haumea. And that is the moon of Eris called Dysnomia. So we also looked at the Ross 154 system. Here's Planet 1 from Ross. Here's Planet 2. Here's Planet 3. Again, these are the original settings. There's 4. For some reason, I can't explain it. Skip 5 or 6. And there's Planet 7. So again, those are the original settings. Now here's the new ones. There's the new Mercury. There's Venus. Earth is a lot bluer and a lot more alive. Here's the moon. Again, I think it's a much, much better look. Mars is fantastically better. Ceres has detail and color that you wouldn't have seen in the original version. There's Jupiter, again, much more dynamic. There's Jupiter from Io with the new settings, the new visual settings. Here's Saturn, and watch what the rings do with the diffraction and the sort of the dissipation of the sun behind the rings. It's just absolutely gorgeous. Just gorgeous. So again, these are settings you can change if you got Space Engine in the opening. There's Uranus. There's Neptune, of course. There's Haumea. And again, that's the moon from Eris. But the big improvements come when we go to the Ross system. So here's Planet 1, spectacularly better. And in fact, when you get to things like the sunrise on Planet 1, it's just night and day. surface textures on the moon look a little better, but watch the way the planet starts to brighten as the sun comes up there. The limb brightening is just much, much better. You can see details on the clouds of Planet 1 that really just didn't seem to be there before. So here's Planet 2, much more detail than the original. So again, that's Rodrigo's work. There's Planet 3, much better looking. Here's 4. It's a little strange, a little pastel-y, but it's certainly better. There's 5, which I didn't get 5 before for some reason, but nevertheless, this looks much better. Now, this is really bizarre. This is 6. I think that's very Baroque. I can't stand it. But 7 looks just astonishingly better. And now comes the really kind of cool and good news as far as buffing up Space Engine for our needs goes. That's actually a real nice shot of the double planet at the Ross 154 system. So here's the part that's great. Let's go back to the Space Engine settings on Steam, and we'll go back to Workshop again. We've already done Rodrigo's gas giants and terrestrial planets and seen how much of an improvement that is. If we click on see all the items and we scroll down just a little bit here, we want to go to this one. It's called Earth-like Discoveries, and this user is Ettore Bilbo. And what he's done is basically he's either made or found hundreds and hundreds of Earth-like planets. And you can see that they're just phenomenal. And they've all got names, so all you have to do for this one, again, like all the other ones, just click on the subscribe thing, and you are good to go. So let's have a look at just a few of these things and get an idea of just how impressive we can make these custom-built solar systems in Space Engine. Now, the beautiful thing about these planets is we can go to them, we can cut and paste them, and simply copy them into the solar systems that we're going to be using. Many of these planets are hundreds of thousands of light years away. But you can see that if you put a little work into it, plus again with the work that Rodrigo has done, you can get some pretty good-looking visuals out of this. By the way, I don't know what it is about the procedural planets, but they sure seem to overdo the rings on the terrestrial planets. Sometimes they're just spectacular, but by and large, there's just too many of them. So you can see that even inside Space Engine, which I wouldn't call exactly high-fidelity rendering, you can get just tremendous looks, again, adjusting the video settings in the Space Engine itself, and then by installing these plugins. And again, we've got the link to the video that'll teach you how to do the video settings. So Space Engine is looking a lot better. In our next episode, we're going to go back to our Ross system, and we're going to rename the planets, and we're going to plug in much higher quality planets than the ones that were procedurally generated out of the box. And we'll eventually be able to make those files available for everybody so that everybody can be on board with this new look, and we'll take it from there. That'll do it for this edition of World Building the Colonies, made possible by the members of BuildLittle.com. Please subscribe to the Stratosphere Studio channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you in the next episode. Well, Okay, that was kind of fun. So again, for those of you who may be coming in a little bit late, I mean, not today, I mean just to the general idea. It occurred to me that there's this software out there called Space Engine, and everything in it is modifiable. And so it uses real solar systems and generates procedural planets around those based on probabilities. And whenever they discover new exoplanets, to put those in too. And the idea is that anybody who wants to keep up with the world building in the colonies, we will be able to produce just a real simple text file, and we'll update it constantly. So that that means that anybody who's a fan of the TV show will be able to use Space Engine to go to all the locations that are used in the TV show. The stuff you just saw is a huge improvement over what comes out of the box. It's still not good enough for television. It's just not. Who knows? By the time we get this thing going, maybe it will be, but I doubt it. I've been playing around a lot with the planet generator in Unreal Engine, which is good. Next episode here, I hope, to show the difference between procedurally generated planets in Space Engine, compare them to the procedurally generated planets from Unreal, which are much better, and then compare both of those to artwork to to guys who are just simply going in there and making these astonishingly beautiful maps. I think probably the end solution is to use software that I've not used before called Terragen. Terragen is a landscape generator, and you zoom all the way back out into space. And Terragen is what they use for feature films. Terragen did the planets in Rogue One. It's fantastic. So one way or another, we'll be able to get there. But I don't know which version will ever be using. My favorite part about this whole procedure, by the way, I mean the whole sci-fi thing, the whole computer graphics thing, all of it. My favorite part of it is the fact that while I hate delaying and I know things always take so much longer than usual, than I expect, the fact of the matter is every day that goes by is a day that things just get better. I was looking for, hang on a second, I'm going to find something on YouTube here. I should have had this pulled already. Give me 1 second because this is really pretty cool. Let's see if I find my history there. Let's see what we get. There's a guy out there who I've just been a fan of for a long time. He's a young guy, does voices. He's an impressionist, and so he's been doing all of these voices, and he does them beautifully. But because he's so young, it's kind of a tough sell. And I am looking for this stuff because I remember we talked about things like real-time deepfakes, and that was what, 2, 3, 4, 5 months ago, maybe 6 months ago. Since then, the technology has progressed so fast. I must have it on the other channel. Hang on. Since then, the technology has gone so quickly that now this guy is able to do. There we go. Deepfakes with just to mock stuff. I'm trying to find one that. Let me do this. Trying to find one that really gets the message across here. Charlie Hopkinson is the guy's name. Here's his channel. And so what he's been doing, as I mentioned earlier, I wanted to talk about Rings of Power, but he's been doing just these vicious takedowns of Rings of Power, and he's done it as Gandalf and as Boromir, all of it. I just want to find one. This is my favorite one. It's okay. I should have put. Okay, here we go. Here we go. So I'm going to just download this short, just because I like it so much, and mostly because I want you guys to see just how fast this technology is moving. It's just a guy working at home, and the results, I think, are really cool. So I got to find my downloader. And again, it gets better, faster all the time. So let me just drop this one in there for you. This particular section is mocking one of the episodes of Rings of Power where the village healer, who is actually the great warrior captain who decides to tear down the stone fortress that they have and then go and defend a thatched hut in the middle of the village, that kind of thing. She gets shot with an arrow, one or two arrows, and it's one of these really, really cheap ways to generate, pseudo concern. That's assuming that, first of all, you cared about the characters, and nobody does. But it also is it's just this whole J.J. Abrams, mystery box thing, right? It's the whole thing. It's like, really, he got famous for Lost. I didn't see a lot of Lost, but he got famous for Lost because he would just set up what he called a mystery box or something. What's in the mystery box? And J.J. Abrams' attitude is, doesn't matter. What matters is that people are interested in finding out what's in the box. Okay, you got half of that right. But if you don't pay off the box, then you end up with Lost, which was from the fans. Like I said, I really wasn't one. But from the fans, it was like all of these threads that have been hanging there, let's resolve them. They didn't resolve them. You know why? They didn't resolve them because there was no resolution to them. J.J. Abrams had never, ever planned on answering these questions in the mystery box. So it's just lazy writing, and Rings of Power is filled with lazy writing. But this serves two purposes here. This will come on over here. Is that not downloading? Hang on, kids. First of all, it mocks Rings of Power, and secondly, it's just really good. Really, really good deep fake. Come on, you can do it. Okay, hopefully this will work. Hang on. I don't know if it's vertically formatted, so if it sits over me, then it sits over me. 19 seconds, so you get the idea. This is fantastic. Ready? All right, here we go. Hopefully this will work.
I swear to God, if she survives, I'm going to kick off.
Yours were at point blank range, though, weren't they?
Not even wearing any armour. I would have followed you, my brother, my captain, Oh, actually, just give it a poke with a burning twig. Oh, I'm all great, right as rain. I swear to God, if she survives, I'm going to kick off.
Yours were at point blank range,
Okay.
though, weren't they?
That should
Not
do
even
it.
wearing any armour. I would have followed you, my brother.
It's just
captain.
so cool.
Oh, actually, just give
Okay,
it
you
a
can stop
poke
now.
with a burning twig. Oh, I'm all...
He also has an Elrond, a baby Elrond, and his Elrond is great. So the reason that works so well is because he's a super fantastically good impressionist. And he's been doing these voices for a long time. But now with the deep fake thing, he just sits on the couch and he is Gandalf. He looks, and the guy's really, really clever. His Gandalf is, it's like a cross between the movie Gandalf and the dude, from the Great Lebowski. He just sits around in his robe, and they got the rug that really kind of pulls the room together, and he just sits there and does it. So yeah, can I post a link to his channel? I will. I'll do it when I put this thing up. So yeah, so here in the Twitch stream, Careful Rogue, which seems like a new name, says there's a running argument whether Rings of Power, Hot D or WOT is the worst adaptation of the year. I don't know. I do want to talk a little bit about Rings of Power. Then we'll go take some questions. As I said a few minutes ago, I will eventually write this down and codify it, and then I'll produce the first of these produced pop culture segments that I've been promising forever before I had to go someplace to get paid. Thank you. House of the Dragon, which is a prequel to Game of Thrones, and Wheel of Time. All right, so just a couple things about Rings of Power. And again, I talk about these things mostly because it really helps me clarify these things. So it may end up being called 5 Reasons That ROP Was DOA. I don't know how many reasons there will be, but I will when I've finally written it. The first segment I want to do, and it's not going to be a long piece, really. The first segment's called Men Without Chests. That's a term I think C.S. Lewis used. And he was talking, and he's talking about this probably in the 40s or 50s. He says, we make men without chests and we're surprised when they're cowards and all the rest of it. What he's basically saying is that this idea of manhood and so on is it's taught. It's something that you learn. And men without chests are, well, probably we just say soy boys today, effeminate men who don't get it. And one of the first things that was apparent to me and by the way, just for full disclosure, I'll probably watch all the episodes prior to doing this, but full disclosure, I have not seen any complete episodes. All I've seen are clips from Nerdrotic and Doomcock, Hail Doomcock, and a couple from Critical Drinker. But the first thing that strikes me about Rings of Power is that the showrunners and the writers have no idea what it's like to be a man in the sense that J.R.R. Tolkien described manhood. They haven't got the faintest idea of what he's talking about. And so all they do is triangulate around it. Tolkien served in World War I. He was in the trenches. There's a movie about his life that was actually pretty good, released just a couple years ago. But Tolkien was in the trenches. And in the movie, they say things like the fire-breathing dragon, that was, the smog, and all of this stuff where, like, he's in the trenches and he sees these guys with flamethrowers, and in any event, he suffered. He went through a lot. He also then became a country gentleman. He made enough money to do what every Briton does, and that is have a nice little house out in the country, which is why Tolkien's view of the hobbits was so sympathetic, because the hobbits were just country people, but they weren't filthy hippies like they are in ROP, right? They weren't just these filthy hippies who leave anybody wounded or falls behind, by the way, we're going to leave you out there to die. We'll put branches and leaves in our hair because it's really comfortable. Have you ever done that? You ever had branches or leaves in your hair? It's not fun at all. I think I did that once when I was trying to camouflage myself or something. It's ridiculous. They don't know, the writers and the runners, the people who are playing with this $1,000 million project, don't have the faintest idea about do we have anybody on the the whatchamacallums moderators on the YouTube thing. Anyway, some spam in there. If not, we'll take care of it. So the first part is Men Without Chests. These writers don't know what hardship is, and so they can't write about hardship. They can't write about the bond that warriors have. They can't write about what actual courage is because they've never had to use any actual courage. All they've got is this Hollywood existence with the Starbucks and all the rest of those cliches put together. But nevertheless, they are not men in the sense that Tolkien understood the term. And they don't know how to do or write manly characters. And Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion, which they're cribbing a lot of, those are stories about heroic, enormous conflicts between good and evil. And not everybody's going to get out of this alive. In fact, most people won't get out of this alive. So how do you expect people who've not only never been in combat, but never even read about combat? These guys were running shows like, I don't even know the names, but let's just say Girls for the sake of it, right? That kind of thing. They're these gamma males and these feminist writers, and they're all real woke, and they want to get their ideology in there, and we'll talk about that. We've done that to death. I'm more interested in why Rings of Power is such a catastrophic failure, not so much the details of that. Doomcock and Nerdrotic have done a much better job of breaking that down, drink or two. So I'm interested in the why. So that would be the first part. Men Without Chests, the fact that they cannot connect to the essence of Tolkien because Tolkien was about manhood. He was about courage. He was about stepping up. Frodo, probably the single most poignant moment that Tolkien ever wrote in his career was at the Council of Elrond when everybody's arguing about how we're going to take the ring back to Mount Doom. And Frodo says, I'll do it. I'll take the ring. That is why Tolkien is a legend, because he took the person who was the least capable by far. You get these elvish warriors, you got Boromir and these sturdy dwarfs and stuff, and you take the youngest, most inexperienced, weakest person, stands up and says, I'll do it. I'll take the ring. And as Eric Blake points out, although I do not know the way, he doesn't know the way. He has no idea what he's in for. He knows it's going to be bad, but he has no idea what it's in for. One does not simply walk into Mordor, but the point of it is that Frodo knows it's going to be bad, and he does it anyway, because he is courageous, because he has a character. He's a character. He's got manhood in him. I'll do it. And by the way, once he says, I'll do it, all of the other warriors, these powerful guys, including Wizard, get on board too. He's the catalyst. That one line, I will take the ring, that line is the catalyst that launches the entire adventure and the destruction of the ring. How do you write that into Rings of Power if you have never been afraid for your life, if you've never had to face combat, if you've never had to deal with the fact that tomorrow or in an hour or whatever, things are going to start getting very loud, and then people are going to try and kill my young life, and I can't get out of it even if I wanted to. So Men Without Chests. Now, in the Twitch comment section, somebody pointed out something that's really profound and a point that I want to make an awful lot of, and that is why, if Rings of Power sucks so hard because there are no men on the writing or producing staff, why is it that the Lord of the Rings trilogy was so unbelievably good? Well, as I guess as Gary Neurotic says all the time, he'll run this clip. I don't know. He's run it 4 or 5. They probably run it 7, 8 times during the course of this Rings of Power thing. There's a clip of Peter Jackson being interviewed 20 years ago, and somebody says, what about you and your politics, Peter? Do you agree with everything Tolkien says? And what Peter Jackson essentially says is, look, we decided in the beginning that this wasn't about us. This was about Tolkien, and we were going to put Tolkien on the screen, not what we thought Tolkien should be on the screen. He said that pretty much verbatim. Now, why is that? Because Peter Jackson's never been in combat that I know of. Why is Peter Jackson capable of doing that? Because Peter Jackson is a man, and it's probably because he had enough influence that he made one of my other favorite movies called They Shall Not Grow Old. A couple years ago, I guess in 2018, the 100th anniversary of the end of World War I, Peter Jackson was given a mountain of footage. Movies and motion pictures were brand new in 1918, 17, 1916, right in there. Brand new. And the film was old and degraded and scratched. It was supposed to be at 18 frames a second, but the camera was hand cranked. And so not only is it not 18 frames a second, it's constantly going faster and slower as this guy's trying to do this. So Jackson took the best effects house in the world, which is Weta or whatever, and he took all of this footage. So the first thing he has to do is he has to take it from 18 frames a second and get it up to, I don't think he went to 60. I probably went to 24 or 30, right? So what do you do when you've got 18 frames in 1 second and you want to get it to 30 frames in 1 second so it's smoother? There aren't enough frames to fill the second. 18 frames for 1 second, 30 frames for 1 second. What do you do about the missing frames? Well, he wrote some software where the computer would interpolate here's one frame with the guy's hand like this, and here's another frame with the guy's hand like this, and so the computer would generate a frame in the middle with the hand like that, right? So then he had to digitally get all the scratches out, and then he had to colorize it, and then he did image processing and sharpening, and I talked about this movie when it came out several years ago. It is like you are there. It's one of the most remarkable movies I've ever seen. I cannot recommend it highly enough. It's about 45, 50 minutes, called They Shall Not Grow Old. And he, of all the mountain of footage he had, I mean, he must have had thousands of hours. He picked one shot, which was a shot of British Tommies, because he's doing it from the British point of view, and I'll get to that in a second. But there's this line of guys, and the genius of Peter Jackson is he starts They Shall Not Grow Old with the footage that we're used to seeing. Everybody's marching a little fast. The reason everybody seems to walk fast in old movies is because they only shot 18 frames a second. When you play it back at 24 or 30, then everybody has to speed up. They undercranked it. So he's got this shot of this line of soldiers, and they're moving, and he does it really slowly. And the reason he picked that one particular shot more than anything is there's a young British Tommy who is staring at the camera the whole time. And you're always supposed to say, don't look at the camera, don't look at the camera. Whenever an extra or an actor looks at the camera, instantly, fourth wall is broken, and you're out, and you just have to do the take again. But this case, that's exactly what he wanted, because he'd never seen a movie camera before. These things were, or maybe, look, it's like okay, it's like SpaceX just landed. So he's got this kid who's looking at the camera, and slowly, that jerkiness and that speed disappears, and then all of the grain and all that stuff disappears. Then it comes into color, and as he walks past the frame, it's a real person. It's a real person. It's not just a flickering black and white image. One of the shots in there, which he spends a fair amount of time on, is a unit that's waiting in it's not a trench, it's like a embankment on the side of a village, of a country road. And these guys are about to go over the top, and he was able to find out what this unit was. And it was a unit and that footage was taken on the morning of July 1st, 1916. And in about 10 minutes after they stopped shooting that footage, those guys would go over the top in the Battle of the Somme, where the British lost 16,000 men killed in the first 15, 20 minutes. Most of the guys in that frame weren't going to live another half hour. And one of those guys in that frame really looks like he knows it. He's just terrified. He's just terrified. The difference between good filmmaking and bad filmmaking is sweating the details. And when I realized how much care and love and attention went into this, They Shall Not Grow Old. There's a point to be made here, although not quite so rambling as I tend to do like this. What he did was he hired a forensic lip reader, because there's no sound. And so this woman would watch these people talking, and she'd reconstruct the conversation. And then what Jackson did was, he didn't just get some guy to come into the studio, "Oh, get us a voice guy, come on in to read these lines." No. If the unit was from Manchester, he went out and tried to find either soldiers or maybe actors from Manchester. He wanted the accents to match the units. That's the level of detail. That's the granularity of care and love and talent that makes something great. So all of this to say what? Why was Jackson so good and this so bad? Well, because Jackson said, it's not about me, it's about Tolkien. Why? Why did he have that attitude and not the attitude that these showrunners have, which is, oh, Tolkien, here's a chance for us to get our politics into, because everybody loves Lord of the Rings. Well, Peter Jackson made that movie for his grandfather, a close relative who was in World War I. And Peter Jackson had, I think he had like one of the largest collections of World War I artillery. He loved the subject before he got the job. He knew the subject before he got the job. And he was fully versed in what kind of hell that was before he got the job. Before he got the job for They Shall Not Grow Old, and before he got the job for Lord of the Rings. So he understood it. Peter Jackson is not a man without a chest. He's a guy who can put himself into it even though he didn't have to live through it. And the people on board Rings of Power have nothing to do with this, nothing. The second segment I will do is going to be called the parrots. Parrots. When you don't know what you're talking about, and especially when you've got something like J.R.R. Tolkien, which is kind of iconic in a lot of ways, writers will parrot what they think this kind of person should be saying. You see it all the time in movies about fighter jocks, right? You know, you got these, either they're in space or so on, you know, it's like, last one to get the bad guys buys the beer, you know, and it's like, no, they don't talk like that. You know, all of this junk, you cleared to land on runway 72, you know, and all the rest of this stuff is just insane. They don't know what to say, but they know enough of what it sounds like so that they try to parrot what it is, but there's no substance underneath. Now, if a parrot says, "Pal, I want a cracker. I'd like a cracker. Could you get me a cracker, please?" Does the bird really know what it's saying? No, it doesn't have any idea. Parrots are very good at mimicking other birds' calls. It just hears sounds and recreates those sounds, but doesn't understand it. That's exactly what these writers did in Rings of Power. They tried to recreate the sound of Tolkien without understanding anything about what he was talking about. A great example of this is a scene where they're about to set sail, the Númenóreans, I think, and they're training for the water, and the drill instructor or whatever he is says, "The sea is always right." The sea is always right. That sounds really deep, doesn't it? I actually would like to do. I'll probably do this in the written version. So if I'm one of those guys who's standing there, right, and this guy is trying to teach us how to sail and stuff, and he says, "The sea is always right." Yeah. Sorry, Sergeant. Got a question? Chief, I guess he'd be. Yeah, you Whittle in the back. What is it? Oops, sorry. I should have put that on mute. I had a couple of calls I had to get today. Sorry about that. Spam risk. Imagine my surprise. Yeah, question for you. I'm not, trying to be difficult or anything, but I don't understand what that means. The sea is always right. The sea is always right. When we go to sea, the sea always wins. The sea is always right. But that doesn't really make any sense, sir. I mean, the sea is the sea. Now, if you want to talk about, what was the name of I had the name of the ocean god, Olme, I think. Now, if you want to say Olme is always right, the god of the ocean, even that doesn't really make sense. But maybe the thing to say would be, Olme has all of our fates in his hands. Something like that would work. But the sea is always right doesn't make any sense. And I'm not trying to be difficult or anything, but I don't know. The sea is always right. Sounds deep. Now, as a challenge, I swear to you that I did not rehearse this. I'm going to simply do it. Here's a speech for Galadriel or Doogie Elrond or any of these other people. Here's a speech written by people who are trying to parrot what Tolkien is saying without understanding it. Let's see. My brothers, today is our day. Today is our day, and the only place to find the light is in the deepest, darkest area. That is the only place where we can find the light, is in the heart of darkness. And that kind of thing, right? The only way to find the light is to search the heart of darkness. It doesn't make any sense. You could say the time when you most hope for light is in the heart of darkness, but to say that the way to find the light is to go into the heart of darkness is to negate the fact that it's the heart of darkness. If there's light in there, then it's not the heart of darkness. It's parroting. It's saying things that people think sound important. Together, we must choose our time, whether we will stand together or whether we will fall. But I will tell you now that I will not let this day pass without blood on my sword and just it's blah, 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 blah. They don't have a clue. So that's parroting. One of the most shocking things to me about Rings of Power is how bad the details are. It's like, that's exactly right. You just nailed it. Cafficinato in the Twitch stream said they write these characters as if it was a Kamala Harris speech. The passage of time. Passage of time is important because as time continues to pass, things happen during the passage of time. And as the passage of time continues, I think we can all get together and look back upon it and say, my goodness, that time passed and all of us were together at the time that the time passed. It's almost like one of those things where you've got to write, like a 200-word essay, and it's like 200-word essay on King Lear. King Lear is a play. It's a play that's written by William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare was a writer of plays in England. This kind of thing, right? They just can't hear it. But back to the third section, the details. The armor in this show is appallingly bad. It looks like a print. It looks like the kind of thing you might get on Etsy or something. It looks like the scales are printed on, and you wear this as a Halloween costume. The armor looks like plastic. No one gave a damn. I've talked before about how Peter Jackson not only hired professional armorers to make this armor, but that he did something that cost an awful lot of time and an awful lot of money. Namely, in every other movie that I've ever heard of, with the exception of Lord of the Rings, the people in the front row of extras, look, you got your main characters, right? Those guys have what we call hero armor. Call it hero armor or whatever because the hero's wearing it. That stuff has to be as good as it gets because there's going to be close-ups. But generally speaking, the front row of extras will have armor that's significantly less complex. And by the time you get 2 or 3 rows back, they've got something very simple because you're not going to see the details. So why go to all the trouble of making all of this detailed armor when you're not going to see it on the screen? But Peter Jackson didn't take that approach. He took the approach that everybody's going to get. Everybody in that scene in Rohan in the Two Towers where they first encounter Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli running. When we first see Rohan, the guys on the Éomer on the horse, and every single one of those guys, there's probably 30 guys in there, have hero armor on. So why would you do that? Why would Peter Jackson go to the time and trouble to do that? They're extras, right? They're extras. Well, he did it because he wanted the extras to feel like they were warriors. And as a person who had a theater degree and didn't do me much good, I will tell you one thing. I was in Man of La Mancha as literally a spear. Well, I wasn't a spear carrier. I was a sword carrier. I put Texas dirt on to make myself look real swarthy, me and a bunch of other guys. And I had a conquistador helmet made out of plastic and armor, but I had these boots. And when you walk on stage wearing armor and boots and you've got a heavy sword in hand, it changes the way you walk. And it changes the way you move. If you are wearing something like that, it is amazing how much of the character comes into you as an actor just from the costume, right? And same thing is true if you dress up as a cowboy or whatever. But I remember being in this armor, and it was crummy armor too, but I remember wearing this thing, and I would go out there with this thing, and I would just have this look at people. I'm a Spanish conquistador. I'm one of the guards in this musical. But I'm looking at everybody. I'm looking at everybody like, you look at me for one more second and run this sword right through your effing neck. I'm just going to do it right now because I can. And so when Jackson did that for his extras, it paid off because despite the fact that the armor looks so bad, the details of all the things I've seen, the one thing that pulls me out of here faster than anything are how the soldiers walk, how the warriors walk. When you watch them walking off to battle, they look like they're standing in line for a grande latte, you know. They got this kind of weird smile on their face. They just have this soft sort of walk. They don't carry any muscular tension. They certainly don't carry any sign of anxiety or any sign of pride, let's say, when they're leaving their city. They don't have any connection to what they're doing. It's just a bunch of people walking. And when you watch how the soldiers walk in Rings of Power, you will immediately get it. And as they, you know, as Mr. Plinkett says on Red Letter Media, who's the father of us all, you may not have noticed it, but your brain did. And so when you've got the extras and all of these soldiers and all these warriors who are essentially just playing, you know, like they're walking down the beach at Santa Monica, it shows. Now, you contrast that with the way that the warriors walked and moved and behaved in Lord of the Rings. And now you've got a real example of why Rings of Power sucks so bad. Jackson used actual soldiers when he could get them. They were all volunteers. And by the way, most of you know that the original Aragorn was not... oh, come on. Sometimes you just hit his face is right in front of me. Help, please. The actor. I'm going to be... Viggo Mortensen, thank you. Thank you. He wasn't the first choice. They shot a significant amount of the movie without him, but he just wasn't working. He just wasn't. So Viggo came in there, and the reason that Viggo did knock that part out of the ballpark was because on his first day, he went to these New Zealanders who were his backup guys, you know, the soldiers of Gondor and all the rest of it. And they were doing this headbutting competition. And he just went in there and started doing it. And when he left, when the movie was over, he went down with all of his guys and I mean, hard, right? Hard enough to break the skin. He was fully committed to those guys. He wasn't some famous actor come in from Hollywood, parachutes out of the sky, does a couple lines and disappears. He lived with the guys who were playing the soldiers. He wore the armor with them. He got to know them on a first-name basis. And because of that, those extras loved him. And when you see those extras in that movie, when you see them looking at Aragorn, you will see something that you will never see in Rings of Power. Ever. And that is respect, admiration. You can watch their courage, actually watch it blossom while he's talking. And they have warlike faces, which leads me to my next point, which I don't have maybe call the fourth part barbarians. So you've got Doogie Elrond, you've got Liberace, you've got I'm trying to think of some of the names that fans came up with because these things are fantastic. Guy Ladriel is great. You've got Hobo Baggins, right? So you've got these characters that are mockable. Let's take Doogie Elrond. So Doogie Elrond looks like a 22-year-old boy, right? He looks like Doogie Howser. What's going on here? They do the exact same thing on Kurtzman's Star Trek. They cast Mr. Spock on Strange New Worlds. Spock looks like a guy who you might see who's a barista someplace. In other words, it's just another headshot from the 100,000 stacks of headshots, probably had some connection to the producers or whatever. And because they don't have any experience in combat, they have no idea what real men look like. So you cast Doogie Howser. But here's the point, right? Just stop for a second and think about the faces. Think about the faces in The Lord of the Rings. Those are some bizarre-looking people, right? Some bizarre-looking people. Elrond he's a strange-looking man. Saruman they're all weird looking guys. Even Viggo has a very strange, very rough look to him. He's not what you would call a handsome guy. You just feel like you follow him anywhere. Hey, first time chat from Mecca 1194. Yeah, headshot barista. That's what they cast because that's all they know. Right? There's no masculinity in these guys, no rough edges, which brings me to one of the points about the most common criticisms, and that is things like the elves and black hobbits and all the rest of it. You will hear them say it's racist to say that elves should be what they were in Lord of the Rings because people can't identify with them. Right? So we have to have it accessible. Rings of Power became dead on arrival the instant that the producers of the show said, we want to bring Tolkien into the modern world, or we want it to reflect the modern world. That sentence right there is the death knell. We want Rings of Power to reflect the world as it is today. Well, here's a newsflash for you. It didn't reflect the world as it is today in 2001 with the original trilogy, and it didn't reflect the world as it is today in the 40s and 50s when he wrote this thing. That the entire point of Lord of the Rings is that it doesn't happen during our society. That's the entire point of it, right? It is a magical world with its own rules, and it is extraordinarily granular. It's so well thought out. It's so detailed. So when you say things like, well, if you have a black elf, then you have a problem. Well, that's a racist thing to say, and people they line up their shills to say, I'm a young black man and I never ever liked Lord of the Rings, but now that there's a black elf, all of a sudden I'm really on. Finally, I get to see myself on the screen. Listen, kids, when I saw the elves walking through the forest in Fellowship of the Rings, I didn't feel like I could be one of those people. Those elves. I'm a pretty white guy, you know. I'm not good looking enough or tall enough or stately enough to be an elf, you know. I was just in awe of them. Same thing for the dwarves, same thing for the hobbits. Now, here's the point of all this. This is the point, right? This is how they've messed it up on Star Trek, and they've messed it up in Lord of the Rings. Star Wars doesn't care, but in Star Trek, when you have a black Vulcan, or in who did a great job, by the way. Tim Russ did a fantastic job, but this is the point I'm trying to make. What you could have done with this is you could have had these 6'6", thin, very pale white elves with long straight hair, right? And you could have had the dwarfs who were short and stocky, and you could have had the orcs, you could have had all this stuff. And then you could have said, the thing that's interesting about humans, the thing that's actually interesting and different about humans is that they all look different. All the Vulcans are supposed to look like Leonard Nimoy, who is a strange-looking dude. He is not a handsome guy. So if all of your Vulcans should be green-skinned people, right? And they should all look the same. The Andorians should be blue-skinned people, and they all look the same. Every single one of the members of those races all have the pretty much exact same skin color, and this is where you could have really done something great. You could have said, my God, every race in the galaxy, I know I'm switching back between Star Wars, or of all the races in Middle-earth, it's only the humans that have individuality. It's only the humans that have a different look. Some of them have red hair, some of them have black hair, some of them are blonde, some have dark skin, some have light skin. It's all the same race. It's miraculous. It's miraculous. So you don't have to, by trying to put your politics into that world, you're losing the one opportunity you have to make a genuine statement about human skin tone. And that is that this is the only species on the planet that has that kind of variation among individuals. It's miraculous. It's miraculous, right? But that's obviously not what they're doing. So there's that. I think the final thing would be just talking about Galadriel in general. Because the one thing that these men without chests, or these feminists or whatever. The one thing they'll never understand is power. It's called rings of power, but they'll never understand power, and they'll never understand authority. For the children that made this rings of power thing, authority consists of meanness, and power consists of insult and humiliation. That's what they think, because that's the patriarchy, right? So when they want a woman to be powerful, the first thing they do is make her unbearably obnoxious, unbearably arrogant, unbearably overbearing, unbearably intolerant. All of these things, this is what they think authority looks like. It's the opposite of authority. In Band of Brothers, Easy Company starts out under the command of a guy who is he's a paper tiger, right? He's a stuffed shirt. He's not the guy. He might be a good peacetime officer, but he's not the guy you want for combat, because he is too full of himself, and he struts around, and your weekend pass is canceled, yours is canceled, yours is canceled. He's exercising his authority in trivial ways to raise himself at the expense of, Lieutenant Sobel, thanks, taps, at the expense of the men in Easy Company. This guy, Sobel's idea of authority, was played really beautifully, by the way. I mean, I really can't believe it, that you could take a guy from Friends and have him be that good, but he really was. So the thing that made first of all, Band of Brothers is a real story. But in that first episode of Band of Brothers, you realize that these kind of people, like Sobel or Galadriel, the ones that strut around, the ones that constantly bragging about their feats and their exploits and constantly giving orders and humiliating people, those kind of people, those people are catastrophic in combat situation, because nobody respects them. They'll obey them, but nobody respects them. You don't have to like your officers, but you have to respect them, and you have to believe that they are capable of keeping you alive and achieving the mission. And when you get a guy who does nothing but brag about little things, and he's running down the street, and he's got his 45 in his hand, and he's got his leather jacket on, and he's got his hat is just perfect. That's a phony. And phonies will get you killed. So when he is relieved and Dick Winters takes over, the entire dynamic changes. Why? Because Winters has genuine authority. Winters is a leader. He's not a martinet. He's not a tyrant. He's a leader. And people follow Winters because Winters is not commanding from the back. Winters is the first guy out of the trench. Winters is the first guy running down the field. And that generates respect. And because Winters has actual self-confidence and doesn't have anything to prove, he doesn't go around bragging. He does just the opposite. He gives the men the credit. He takes the blame. That's what a real leader does. A real leader takes anything negative is my fault. Anything positive is the men. And that's the opposite, 100% opposite of what Galadriel is, right? She's nothing but hot air. And every single female character that's been written in the last 20 years, I'll rephrase that. Every single female hero that's been written by females has been an abomination, because they don't understand how it works. They don't. And they never can. This is the thing about reality, right? There are... The entire philosophy of wokeism is, if I believe something, then it's true. And that's not how the world works. Women will never understand that combat bond. Never. They will never understand what male friendship is like. They know what it looks like from across the dinner table or across the bar, but they don't know what it looks like from the inside. So when you have either women or these beta males who never gotten dirty, never shot a gun, never done anything, that guys do. When they try to write these men, they don't have a clue. So the great writers are the ones who either we're talking about military writers and heroes and, this kind of thing. The only ones that can do that are either the ones who actually were in combat or the ones who have a actual male relationship with guys who get dirty. A lot of people have said that Ernest Hemingway is the greatest writer who ever lived, or greatest American writer anyway. I've read a lot of Hemingway. I'm not terribly impressed, but when Hemingway writes battle scenes, they're damn good battle scenes because Hemingway was in the Spanish Civil War and he was shot at continuously. He knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's talking about. When he does The Old Man in the Sea, he's been fishing. He knows what he's talking about. And you can't fake that. So Galadriel becomes this cartoon image of what women think men heroes are like. And because they're so insecure about it, they can never be wrong. And this is the same thing with as Doomcock says, Mikey Spock, right? Michael, whatever the name is in Star Trek Discovery. It's the same thing with Captain Marvel. It's the same thing with Admiral Holdo. They have this, the people that wrote those characters have this badly misaligned idea of what authority really is. And that is catastrophic when you're dealing with a story that is all about authority, right? She's the girl boss. She's never wrong. She's the scourge of the orcs. She's the leader of the northern armies. She's the terror of this. And this is the final thing I'll say about Rings of Power, then we'll take some questions. The people that decided to make her into warrior Galadriel, that's why everybody knew this was going to suck. When the first stills were released and you saw Galadriel in armor, hanging onto a cliff, she digs a sword or a dagger into the ice cliff and she's hanging on. They don't understand that for Galadriel to be a warrior is a demotion, right? It's not a step up. It's a step down. She was a queen. She was a queen. Queens don't go grabbing swords and go out and hacking orcs to pieces. Queens have more important things to do. But they can't see it. Absolutely not a chance. They simply don't get it. And they never will. Galadriel doesn't have the time or the inclination or the body type or anything else to go out there and slay orcs, because Galadriel's job is not to go out and kill individual evil orcs. Her job is to figure out, how do we terminate the evil that drives the orcs at the source? How do we nip it in the bud? How do we pinch that flame out? So to make her this barbarian, it's absurd. And that scene where she's supposedly teaching Númenórean warriors about swordplay. Well, the thing about the sword is you have to thrust it into somebody. Well, now, that's not something would ever occur to me. I thought you were supposed to hit him on the head with the handle end. No. The sword, you have to push the pointy end through. It's like, come on. And she's tiny too. And so whenever I hear all this stuff, about, you're a misogynist and all this other stuff, I say, look, here's what I want to do, okay? Here's what I want to do. You got a Númenórean warrior here, right? So I want to take a soldier. I want to take a special operations soldier. I want to get a SEAL, right? I want to get a SEAL, and I want to put him in 100 pounds of armor, and I want to give him this big sword, and I want to take this actress, and I want to put her in 100 pounds of armor, and I want to give her a big sword and strap that onto their back, and then I want them to both go to a bar, and I want them to hang from the bar, and I want to see who drops first, and I want to see how long it takes between when the first person drops and the second person drops from exhaustion, right? That's what I want to see. I want to see this little actress put on 100 pounds or 150 pounds of armor and weapons and hang, because she's hang right next to a guy who's a professional warrior, and let's see who can hold on the longest. Now, is this a mystery to anybody? No. This is why it failed, because everything about it is a lie. It's a lie. She's not a warrior. Everybody knows it. It's a lie. And Natalie Portman cannot lift that hammer. And Captain Marvel can't fly an airplane because she doesn't look like she has the faintest idea about an airplane. So anyway, whenever you make a successful movie, I could see Gina Carano in armor, but you see she's big. Our friend Eric Blake says in the Twitch stream, yes, if you'd cast Gina Carano as a warrior queen, I'd be much more inclined to buy it. Much more inclined. But they didn't. Who did they cast? They cast somebody who's the kind of person who they would see at a party. That's who the showrunners cast for Galadriel. Little blonde person who you might have seen at at the party in the Hollywood Hills that we had last week when we were doing an art auction to raise money for the Guatemalan water snake. That's the kind of person that they cast. She's got no charisma. She's a plank of wood, as Critical Drinker says. So look, if you're gonna write a story about warriors, you need to have some guys writing it who either know what warriors are or who hang out with warriors, and they spend a lot of time listening. I won't go into this in such great detail because I've mentioned this several times before on the Stratosphere Lounge, but I've gotten to be friends with a guy who's on SEAL Team 7. And, 6-7 years ago, I got a call from him saying, hey, man, I'm just doing a little pistol practice. You want to come over and pick up a few tips? And then there's this bill-shaped dust cloud. So I'm over there, and I walk in there, and as usual, because I'd known this guy for a couple months, but I didn't know he was a SEAL. And so we're all telling our true tales of adventure at this dinner party that, he was at the table. The experimental pilot, I fly these airplanes, and I got an M4, and I'm not bad. I'm telling my true tales of adventure, and he's just sitting there eating his salad. He's not got a thing to say. But when I found out that he was a SEAL and invited me over, I said, yeah, definitely, I want some pistol tips. Now, the fact that I'm going over there to get pistol training from a SEAL separates me from 99% of the men that are in Los Angeles. But still, I'm still going in. You're going to have to excuse the expression. It's my friend Buster O'Connor, who's a straight guy, wonderful guy. But he's the first time I ever heard the term, and it's just such a great term. I'm not an art fag, right? And I went in there trying to pre-impress him with the fact that I wasn't an art fag. Graphic designer, you know what I'm talking about. So I'm listening, and he's talking, and he's showing me, he's balancing a dime on the front sight of this 9mm. And he's just going click, 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 click. And the dime is perfectly stable. He puts the dime on it when I'm holding it, and I don't even get one click before the dime falls off. So I say to him, as a way to kind of, not so much impress him, but to let him know I'm on the team, that I'm not just like an art fag. I say to him, so do you guys use the double tap? I say this with a straight face, right? Double tap. See, not everybody knows what a double tap is. That must make me look like I know what I'm talking about. And you know what he said? When I asked him if you guys use the double tap when you go out on missions, you know what he said? He said, no, we just pretty much keep shooting them until they're dead. And the second that came out of his mouth, the recorders in my head went to high speed. We're now recording, we're taking in as much data as possible, because that one line had so much of the ring of truth about it. It was so true. Do you use a double tap? Here I am. I'm a Hollywood writer, and I know I'm not just a guy. I know about military things. I know what the double tap is. Do you guys use double taps? No, we pretty much keep shooting them till they're dead. And that instant, I said, now I'm dealing with the real guy. Now I have to pay attention. Now I have to listen to everything he says and remember it. So I did. So he was talking about going into rooms. He would do that twice a night. He'd do a midnight raid, he'd do a 3 a.m. raid with guys who are guns shooting at him. So I would be doing this thing, and I'm working on reloading the thing, and he says, no, you don't want to reload it down here, Bill. You want to keep the gun. Always want to keep the weapon. He said, always want to keep the weapon up here in your workspace. What? Yeah, you need to keep it up in your workspace. What do you mean by workspace? The second he said workspace, I thought, this is really something here. He says, well, our workspace, it's probably, 150 degrees maybe by 40. This is our workspace. We never want to look down, because if we look down to reload this thing, while we're looking down, some guy can come around that corner with an AK and blow my brains out. And I don't want that to happen, so I will reload this thing in my workspace so that I never, ever lose the situational awareness of what's going on. And this is how a good writer can write military characters without having actually been in the military. You have to respect it. You have to love it. You have to really, really admire the people who are you're soaking this up from. And everything he said was just so true, because it broke all of the assumptions that I thought would come with the job. So if I'd written something about SEALs prior to that evening, I would have written something that was okay, not bad, but certainly not great. But now, and this is just one evening with an hour, now, if I have to write about SEALs, I'm going to call my friend. I'm going to say, hey, man, I'm on the team, right? Can I hang out with a couple of you guys and just soak it up? Not going to get any questions. How many guys you killed? No. I just want to hear how you talk. And when you do that, it works. They did it with, was it Lone Survivor or Soul Survivor? Lone Survivor, I guess. Soul Survivor? The Mark Wahlberg movie. Those scenes with those guys have the ring of truth because somebody is paying attention, right? Somebody's paying attention. So that's that. All right. Well, that was fun. Let's take a look at some questiones, why don't we? I think I said we go to Facebook for the Stratosphere Lounge, but I believe I'll go to Facebook for this as well. That's not what I want. What do I want? I want... Come on, Nebel, you can do it. You can do it. If you just put your mind to it, you can do it, my boy. Having a hard time with this. Let's go down here to where the Facebook thing is. All right, here we go. Facebook. By the way, have you guys seen what's happening to Facebook stock? I think it's at 30% of what it was a year or two ago. This metaverse has really caught fire, hasn't it? It's all people talk about. Man, I tell you, I can't go 10 minutes without having somebody say, "Hey, Bill, what's your avatar in the metaverse?" And I just say, "Man, I can't believe how amazing it is." For those of you who are not students of tech, this is Zuckerberg's alternate reality, his artificial reality world, the metaverse, where you'll be able to shop in the metaverse and have an actual shopping cart that you can push along while you're wearing your virtual reality glasses. You can push the shopping cart around and you can buy things, just put them in your cart, and you pay for them. It's just like in the real world. Well, then I guess I'll just do it in the real world, Mark, because this is tedious and stupid, and you look like a fool. All right, here we go. Okay, so Michael Baker says, I've got question 15 on the website. It'd be awesome if I get to it. So I will go get question 15 on the website as soon as I do. We got 7 comments here. And so I will go get question 15, I promise. Let's see. Okay, here we go. Eric Blake. Hey, Bill. Eric. Here's my insight on the Rings of Power show. I think the way to lay out to honest fans of it, and yes, they do exist, about the problem with it is to point to the big issue with the first Mission Impossible film. While it's a good, enjoyable film in and of itself, it's still a betrayal of the classic canon. It betrays fans of the show by having Jim Phelps turn out to be the villain. In short, something anyone writing for a franchise must keep in mind. Your story might be thrilling or otherwise well written as a story unto itself, but you're going to play in someone else's sandbox. You must play by their rules, period. exactly. P.S. I wonder if the Tolkien estate folks look at Rings of Power and wish they had given Peter Jackson the rights to the Silmarillion way back. If they had, we probably wouldn't have gotten this. Yes, dead on. I personally have read the Silmarillion and all of the associated works, the Tales of Hurin and all the rest of this stuff. And I've read it several times. I personally think the Silmarillion is a much better story than the Lord of the Rings. After finishing the Silmarillion a number of times, I found myself thinking, this is really important and much cooler than makes Lord of the Rings look trivial. So you have got a lot of material to work with. Now, the Silmarillion, a lot of the stuff was off limits to the Rings of Power people. Thank God, because if they did, if they had gotten a hold of it, they would have messed that up too. But just as an example, in the very, very beginning of the Silmarillion, it's the creation of the world. And Iluvatar creates the universe by singing. He sings it into existence. And he creates these creatures, and they add to the song. And everything's going great. And they're singing this universe into existence. Then along comes Morgoth, who has an attitude, and he brings a discordant note to the song, and now things start to go wrong. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. Billy, I have a message on Facebook, not a question. Can you read it? It won't take a moment of your time. So anyway, so yes, here's the thing about a franchise, especially a successful franchise or a formerly successful franchise like Star Wars or Star Trek. You are playing in somebody else's sandbox. You don't get to overrule Gene Roddenberry, even if he's been dead for 30 years. You don't get to do that. It's his deal. And if you don't want to write for somebody else's franchise, then go form your own freaking franchise. He says he was Melkor back then. So, respect this situation. It's true for science fiction, and it's true for fantasy, it's true for comic books, it's true for anything. You can, in a fantasy type world like Spider-Man, for example, you can make whatever rules you want to. But once you've made those rules, you have to follow them. And you have to follow them without fail. Once you break the rules of the world you've created, you have destroyed what people liked in the first place. So if you were to say that Spider-Man could suddenly fly, then it wouldn't be Spider-Man anymore. If you made him impervious to bullets, or if you made him gay, it's not Spider-Man anymore. James Bond is a British assassin. He's a male British assassin who is a womanizer because he sees everything in the universe as objects. He's a psychopath. But he's our psychopath. And if you change any one of those elements, if you change the British, if you change the white, if you change the womanizer, you change any of it, you don't have James Bond anymore. Now, if you want to write a story about a gay, black, woke British assassin, female, then knock yourself out. Knock yourself out. But the reason that they don't is because they know that nobody wants to buy their stuff. So they want to infiltrate these existing things. Yes, 100% correct. When you are dealing with somebody else's franchise, you have to play by their rules. And by the way, Bessel. What is it, my little piranha fish? The laziness of having a situation where you've written yourself in a corner and you have to do some kind of Deus Ex Machina kind of thing where you have to invent some sort of magical power or something to get this character or characters out of a situation that you got them into, and you can't do it by playing by the rules because you're either too stupid or too lazy, then you've ruined the franchise. Classic example, maybe the greatest example in all of pop culture, are the midichlorians. And you can't really say that George Lucas went against the creator because he is the creator. Although I have to tell you, the more I learn about what Star Wars was originally supposed to be before adults got a hold of it, I don't hold George Lucas in super, super high regard. But Lucas wrote the prequel trilogies. And what he needed dramatically for his so-called script was he needed for the audience to know that young Anakin has force potential that is out of the park, right? That the force emanating off of this little boy is unbelievable. That's essential to the plot. In fact, it's like I said, it's essential to the plot. You have to have that because otherwise, all of this effort on to deal with this, 8-year-old kid is meaningless. So you have to show the audience somehow that there's something very, very special about this kid. And so he's got Qui-Gon sitting there. There's a lot of sitting and talking in this thing. And he's so lazy. He's so lazy that he invents something. What do I need? I need to show. I got to show that his force abilities are just off the chart. I know. I'll take a blood test and I'll say, wow, we just got the results of the blood test back. His force abilities are off the chart. So he simply lazily writes himself out of this momentary problem he's in, and now it's ruined. It's over. It's ruined. You never heard of him again, by the way, because he understood they were ruined, right? The same thing with Haldo using the hyperspace thing to blow up a ship. Okay, so that's a thing now. It doesn't go into an alternate reality. It just goes really fast. Okay, great, fair enough. Then we'll just put hyperdrives on bricks, and that's how we'll destroy the Death Star. We'll just shoot a couple bricks into it, and that's the end of it. You've broken the rules, and now everything downstream is corrupted, and you can't put it back. You can't put it back. And it happens again and again and again. This, of all the things, of all the violations of franchise rules that Eric talked about in his question, the one that bothers me the most personally, by a wide margin, is the one that affects my heart. This is where I live, is in Star Trek. But the one thing. Hey, first time chat from Tommy Bear TV. Love the prequels. Okay, that's great. That's fine. But you have ruined the midichlorians thing. Is saying that, look, I'm just going to backtrack for a second. I want to come back to the canon violation in Star Trek that makes me so crazy angry. But I'll just go back to the Star Trek. So Star Trek is science fiction. It's not fantasy. It's science fiction. Star Wars is fantasy. Star Trek is science fiction. So when you first saw Star Trek in the original series, you had the warp drive. Well, that sounds pretty cool. How does it work? Well, it uses antimatter. I've heard of antimatter. There's such a thing, isn't there? Yeah, it turns out there is. It uses an antimatter reaction, which is channeled by dilithium crystals, to create the warp bubble that the ship moves in. And so the ship never exceeds the speed of light. It's just that the bubble does. Fantastic. The tricorder and stuff. The greatest canon violation of all time, in my opinion, is the spore drive. I don't know what to say about that. Instead of our ship going from here to there, and at warp 6 or 7 or 8, we now have a magical ability based on space fungus to simply appear wherever we want to because of space fungus, because the whole universe is tied together by these spores. But the problem with this is that spores can't survive in outer space. And since everything is in constant motion, those connections are broken instantly. It is not only not science, it's anti-science. It's just stupid. Stupid. It's really, really, really dumb. But they don't care because they don't know anything about science and they don't have any respect for Star Trek. If they did, if they had any respect for it, they would say, okay, we want something that's a little more advanced than the warp drive. Go talk to the fans. They'll come up with 30 things that are going to work just perfectly. But no, we're going to have a spore drive, and it's all going to be based on our emotions. You see, it's not going to be based on science. You don't have to be an engineer like Scotty, who's been working on engines for 40 years. No. You just got to be sensitive enough, and you have to plug yourself into the spores and then wish upon a star, and sure enough, that's where you are. And it is antithetical to the thing that made Star Trek so attractive, which was its believability. Dilithium doesn't exist, but it sounds like it should exist. It's not like unobtainium. And on we go. Anyway, so that's that. Before I come back to the Facebook questions, I am going to go to billwhittle.com, and I am going to answer question 15. Help me out here. Find out which one question 15 is. It's like execute order 66. They did a great job on that in Red Letter Media. Well, we can't have it be execute order 666. That's 2 on the nose. And you can't say execute order 6 because, that sounds kind of puny. 66 is the answer. Yeah. Laziness. Lazy. No talent hacks. Given fortunes to write garbage. Member forum. Searching. Working. Hear the release. Clicking. Working. Stress for lunch questions and more. See if it's in there. Hang on a moment. Stratopop questions, 1018. Okay. Now we have a bespoke question that we're gonna ask here, and I want to do so. Question 15. Help me out here. What name am I looking for? Hi, Sam Daham 05. It's not that it's a bad name, it's just the eyesight's going. Chrissy Taylor for the win. Norman, coordinate, does not compute. Wizard 13, is this question 15, Wizard? Is this where I'm going? All right, let's see. Excuse me for a moment while I put on my cogitation spectacles here. Okay, let's see. Ian Nolan, J.K. Masterson, Eduardo Enrique, Marisha Dark, Trevor, Chris Taylor, Chris Taylor, Marisha Dark, Henry Lumley, Cody Mills, Marisha Dark, Michael Baker. Let's go to page 2. Eduardo Enrique, is that? So sorry to do this in real time. Which I don't know what the name is. Maybe I can find it in Facebook. You said it's in Facebook as well. Let me have a look here. Sorry. See, some people have producers for this kind of thing. That would be lovely, wouldn't it? Eduardo. Okay, so here's Eduardo here. Let's see if this is the one. That looks like a question. Okay, so I think this is the only one. Is it the one dealing with the prisoner? I hope so, because that's a... let's see. Use the force bill. Yes, I'm gonna assume it's the one about the prisoner. All right. Last chance to cut me off here and save yourself. Okay, it sounds like it. This sounds like it might be it. Greetings, Bill Wizard 13 here. Given the pop culture theme of this show, I would like to remind both you and your audience about the 55th anniversary of the first UK screening of the Prisoner episode Arrival, a work of true genius. Agreed. Patrick McGowan played number 6 in a struggle to affirm his individuality and recover his personal freedom, escaping from a village ruled by collectivists. Such themes are impossible to come out of mainstream TV today, given their particular political positioning. The show had incredible themes and dialogues, my personal favorite being the lines, "I will not make any deals with you. I will not be pushed, filed, stamped, indexed, briefed, debriefed, or numbered. My life is my own. I am not a number. I am a free man. And should the entire world become as this village, then I will be the first permanent inhabitant of the moon. Hope your opus can recover as this themes and feelings and more. Do not lose hope and be discouraged by these trying times." Thank you for that, Wizard. It's been a rough month. It's been a rough year. You managed to get me to lend you my ears all the way from Germany when I still lived there, so I am sure your reach is greater than you can imagine. And now as a paying member, I lend you my fangs. Best of luck and very best regards. Well, if that's not one of the nicest things that anyone's ever written to me, then I don't know what is. Okay. So there's apparently one from Michael Baker. I'm doing my best here, kids. So, first of all, thank you very much for the kind words. The Prisoner is a brilliant show. The one thing that comes to mind in The Prisoner is the guard. Was it called Rover? So you've got a relatively low budget science fiction story, and it's very intellectual. It's very head thing. So anytime somebody tries to escape, you got to get them back. But they didn't have the budgets to have robots and all the rest of that stuff. So you know what they used? They used an enormous balloon. And it was just terrifying. And they didn't show you anything. It's not like the balloon handcuffs you or anything. It's like you're running, and boom, here comes this gigantic thing. Here comes this gigantic thing. Boom, and then it kind of smothers you. Next thing you know, you've woken up back there. That's a great example of the opposite of laziness. The opposite of laziness is invention, creativity. It's using your imagination to get yourself out of a problem. So again, there's your problem. A low-budget TV show. We got people who are prisoners in this little village. We have to have a constant recurring drama of them trying to escape, and that constantly escaping is one of the motivations. So in order to have this series work, we have to have people make attempts to escape, but not actually escape. So what do we have? Well, we could have guards with guns, but that doesn't make sense. They'd shoot people. Besides, that's all done. This is all science fiction. We can't do robots. We can't do anything. Maybe we do some kind of brainwave. No. They did something that is absolutely outside of the box. They had it be a giant balloon. The question, thank you, GK, is supposed to be from Michael Baker. Is that in the BillWhittle.com section? I'll read that in a second. We'll have a giant balloon. What? A balloon. We'll shoot it in slow motion. No one's going to buy that. It's going to look ridiculous. Let's give it a shot. That's the thing I remember about the show when I was a boy. Was like, when they released this thing, it's like, what? I bought it. I bought it 100% because it was so far outside the box that you weren't even in the box anymore. Starlaw in YouTube. I don't get to catch all of this. A lot of stuff moving. That's why low budget movies breed better movies and TV shows. Exactly right, because you don't get to solve a problem by throwing money at it. You got to think your way out of it. I was an editor on a show called Sunday Morning Shootout, a movie talk show from inside the business with Peter Bart and Peter Gruber. Peter Bart was former editor of Variety. Peter Gruber's a producer, giant producer. And both of them, especially Bart, Peter Bart was instrumental in getting The Godfather made. And that's quite a thing to be able to say. And he said, both of them said, because I've had a lot of experience between these two guys, that the sets with the most conflict tended to be the ones that produced the best result. That creative conflict between a director who's got this vision and a producer who says, you are out of time and money, that kind of thing. An actor's got a different take on the thing than the director does, and by arguing back and forth, they actually find a way to get these things melded or synthesized, and that is interesting and unique. So yeah, that's that's the opposite of laziness. It's, all right, let's fight it out. I know when I was writing a script called Aurora about this mission to Jupiter, and I had this failure, and these two habitats were strung out on long cables and spinning around, and there were these little transfer modules that would go from one end to another, and I needed these things to get frozen halfway so that somebody could come down on a ladder and unstick it. So I had to think about what is a reasonable method for this thing to fail. And that took me a long time. And then I had to think about, okay, now why did the backup not work? Because anything that important is going to have a backup. So I had to come up with a reason why the primary failed, and I had to have a reason why the backup failed. If you do that, you will be rewarded, and you will be successful. And if you don't, you may or may not get away with it. But nevertheless, you're not gonna make a mark. In the original pilot, I think in The Cage, in the original movie, I think Spock was a Martian. Just think about how much worse that would have been if he was a Martian. Rodzilla keeps saying, turn on super chats and super thanks. I will do that. Please take our money, please. I will. I have to look into it. It's just one more ball in the air that I have to do by myself, and I don't want to screw it up, but I will definitely get on it. Everybody's saying so, and thank you. We got 250 people watching on YouTube. My God. That's literally hundreds of people watching the show. Okay, I will do it, GK. I'm under more pressure now than I have been under any time in my life in terms of 4 things that I have to deliver. So, so what happened to Aurora? Well, it's sitting there on the shelf, like many good films, and with the animation studio, we have a chance to, actually make that happen someday. All right. So now I need to go back to BillWhittle.com. It's scrolled away. Hang on. Michael Baker in the forums. All right, so that's where we're going next, because even though I don't do a very good job most of the time, my heart is in the right place. So let's go back to page 1 of this, and I'm going to look for Michael Baker, Ian Nolan, Rasmussen, Chris Taylor, Cody Fick, Chris Taylor, Marisha Dark, Henry Lumley, Cody Mills, Marisha Dark, Michael Baker. I actually saw this question in passing, and I thought it looked interesting. First of all, thank you, Michael. I seem to believe this is the first time I've taken a question from you. And anybody who uses his own picture and avatar is a friend of mine. Bill, I don't know why it took me so long to ask this question, but just this weekend I realized that I should just ask you. My question is a simple one, and it was the first thing that popped into my head when I watched Invisible and Diaz for Dungeon on the first day they were released. How much does it cost to create an animation studio? Through those videos, you repeatedly asked for us to help you, and trust me, we want to, but speaking for myself, we need some specifics. Just to start with, which of these numbers is the closest you need to make this happen? 500,000, 5 million, or 50 million? If it's the middle one, is one person donating 5 million better than 50,000 people donating 100, or 5,000 people donating 1,000? If the final number, is there a bigger strategy in place? Is there a crowdfunding site that you're using? Reading the tea leaves, it seems that the response was underwhelming compared to what you hoped or expected. I think that may be because people were uncertain about specifically how they could help to get this studio off the ground. I know you're not great at this whole asking for help thing, but get up, you're worthy. Help us help you, and give us a target and a funding page. Well. First of all, thank you. There's a lot of Eric Gotts in the live stream says, why do you hate money, Bill? There's a lot to answer here. So let me start with the why do you hate money, Bill? I've mentioned pretty much everything else in my life without too much worry, and talked about being in Narcotics Anonymous when I didn't have a narcotics problem. So I'll just answer this question directly. I don't hate money, but I do hate asking for money. In fact, I have a real issue with this. It's a real problem. And I suspect, having given it a great deal of thought, I suspect that it comes from the fact that from birth until age 13 or 14, living in these really nice hotels or in houses where my dad was a hotel manager, up until age 14 or so, I didn't have any sense of money or any sense of need. We were solidly middle class. My dad never made more than 40 grand a year. But there were lots and lots and lots of perks that came with being a hotel manager, and I got to enjoy those perks. So I grew up in paradise, and when I asked for Christmas presents, Santa brought me the Christmas presents I asked for. I wasn't asking for Lamborghinis. I was asking for a bicycle or a Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea playset, but I got them, right? So that was my life up until I was 14. And then my parents got divorced, and we went from living in certainly not splendor, but certain comfort, to being pretty much flat broke. My mom worked 2 jobs to keep us on Key Biscayne, which is an expensive neighborhood, but we'd grown up there, and she was working real hard. I was taking care of the family, making dinners and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, we were, just poor. I mean, really quite poor, I mean, by American standards, poor. We'd have shepherd's pie 3 or 4 times a week, which is hamburger and mashed potatoes with corn on the top. That was most of the time because that was relatively inexpensive, and it filled you up. And then when I went to college, my dad had told me he'd be paying for my college education, but somewhere between the divorce and me heading up to the University of Florida, one of our relatives had broken into my grandmother's house and stolen my dad's coin collection, which was what he was going to use to make all this stuff happen. So I got to college, and that was pretty rough. There were 2 or 3 friends of mine who were in the theater department, and we would get together every day and combine whatever money we had, which would, maybe scrape together $4 or $5, and we'd go down to what was it called? It wasn't Wubs. Was it Wubs? I forget. Short-lived hamburger chain, and we'd order, 3 or 4 burgers and water, and we'd split it. So what I guess I'm trying to say here is that it always bothered me enormously to be short of money and to ask other people for money, because it just seemed so desperate to me. It seemed like such a failure to me. That's what it is. It feels like failure. There's another whole level to this, and this one is much more in my consciousness. This other thing is deep, but this one I'm more aware of. And one of the things that makes it so hard for me to do this is to do membership drives and keep doing them, is because there's no tangible product. I'm the product. I continue to be amazed at people. I mean, the fact that 250 people are watching me here and another 80 or whatever on Twitch is astonishing to me. I'm not saying I don't appreciate the work, and I'm not saying I don't know I'm good at what I do. I know I'm good at what I do. And I know that when I'm on my game, I'm a good writer, and that's worth money. But the problem is that I'm not selling anything tangible. If I was making shoes and I was working there and stitching the shoes, I could say, this is a damn good shoe, and I'd give you the shoe in exchange for that. You'll give me this. But there's something about opinion that's so ephemeral that it seems tough to ask people for this. I suspect that this business about me feeling like, I'm not offering something that you can touch in exchange for money. I suspect that's probably intellectual and emotional cover for the sheer shame of it. of just going from, living in this hotel on the beach in Bermuda to living in these, these houses with rats in the walls. That was not fun, and I suspect it probably stayed with me my whole life. So that's why I feel so uncomfortable about asking for money. It makes me feel like it just reminds me of being in a place of helpless. That's what it feels. It feels helpless to me. That's exactly it. So that's something I have tried repeatedly to get over, and I can't. So Jessica, 1993, says you have to mentally separate yourself from the work. Thank you. And thank you, Luke, for that comment, which is too nice for me to repeat. And in the comments section on the other side on Twitch, we get this, Bob Newhart, stop it. And it's a great sketch that he did where he's a psychiatrist and I do this, and this, and what do you think I should do? Stop doing that. I'll try. Taps 556 is really on it. It says, have someone do it for you. And Cody McCarthy, I'm just getting so much love here, I can barely stand it. Thank you. So there is, but to your specific question and to the problem. So this company, BillWhittle.com, and the membership base has never made more money than it cost. It's always lost money. And in order to keep it going for the amount of time it's been going, it's not bleeding out, but it's hemorrhaging. It always has. So the business model, from a guy who's not only not good at business, I'm an anti-business brain, is this. The resources go down, very slowly, but they go down. And then there comes a point where I have to simply go get a paying job. And for the last 4 or 5 years at least, that's been these Daily Wire things. So I do Apollo 11, I get paid for that, and then raises the money in the account, and that allows me to kind of slowly go down for another year or two. Then I get another hit, and then slowly go down for another year. And that's not great. It puts me in a state of perpetual stress, actually. And I'm in that situation right now, where I have to. And don't get me wrong, I want to. I love working with these guys. Love working with Daily Wire, the best people I ever met. But there comes a time when I just have to drop everything, and I'm trying not to. I'm shooting right angles tomorrow, and I want to get this national anthem thing done because it's simple and it would be something. It'd be living up to my promise, basically. But in this particular case, and in many cases, my hands are tied. I have to keep doing this to keep the thing going. So Tap said, you need a membership marketing director. I do. Now, that's a whole nother story, and we'll save that for a later time because I think this question was so spot on and perfect, and I want to answer it directly. And thank you so much for all the encouragement. So in bold, he says, how much does it cost to create an animation studio? And then he says, which number of this is closer, 500,000, 5 million, or 50 million? And here's where we get into a little bit of trouble. I get into trouble, not we. The answer is you can do an animation studio for all three of those numbers. And because of my attitude about this money-raising thing, I always go low. Always. I'll always go low. It might actually be easier to raise 5 million than it is to raise 500,000. I don't know, but I would immediately say 500,000. To be fair, that is a true answer. The animation studio costs, you get the animation studio that you have a budget for. If I had $50 million, I would have a much bigger studio and we'd be able to do an awful lot more stuff in parallel. But to get The amount of money I think we would have to raise in a crowdfunding thing to do a season, I would say, is probably closer to $4 or $5 million. I think the pilot could be done for, again, how much money. So I've got money and time, and this is to answer your question, Michael. It's just to tell you that I can't answer the question, not because there is no answer, just because I don't know how to get to one. So the more money you have, the faster you can do things. The more money you have, the more you can employ people. I live in an extremely expensive place. That may be changing, but it's a very expensive place to put a studio because cost of living is so high here. So if I were to have in the studio here, if I were to have a team of 8 people, 4 animators, a couple of texture guys, and a couple of modelers and stuff, that would cost a lot more money than if I were to do that in Tennessee or somewhere else. Cheers from Canada. Thank you very much, George. So my instinct is to go low, but that's a emotional problem I have. I think, look, I could spend the $50 million, but I don't want to get into Star Citizen realm, right? I don't want to get to the point where I have $50 million. I'm going to make this entire studio look like the inside of the Enterprise, that kind of thing. So I would say the answer is 5. I'd say 5. I think if we were doing a crowdfunding thing, we would go for 2 to 3, something like that. Now, there's some hope on the horizon. I have talked to somebody who I'm, wouldn't say close friends with, but who I've been working with for 10 years. I'm not going to mention his name. He's still out here in Los Angeles. And he is an extraordinarily capable guy. In fact, he's so capable that I curse him every time I see him because he's so young. We first started working together on The Arroyo, which is Jeremy Boring's movie, which was shot in 2010, I want to say, 2010, 2011. I edited that. The person I'm talking about said he was never been in show business before, and at that time was practically in diapers, and he was going to be doing the special effects. The Arroyo is a crime cartel set on the border thing, so there are special effects in it, a lot of gunshot flashes, you got a lot broken glass, bullet hits on the wall and stuff. And when I first met this guy, he said, I'm going to be doing special effects, and Jeremy would say, yeah, he's going to shoot the window out of that truck, he's going to do that with special effects. And I thought, good luck with that, this is not easy. But he taught himself After Effects, and they're fantastic. It blew me away. So he has a production company, and we've worked together on a number of things. He's been helped me produce. He partially produced the Apollo series and so on. So I talked to him about this animation thing. He seems interested, and we will be talking about that in great detail the second I finish this series. I have to get this series done, and the timing could not have been worse. And so, look, here we are. Here we are in our circle of our 12-step program, and once you start laying that stuff out, then you get used to just kind of bearing it all, I guess. The honest fact of the matter is that the animation work was so enormous that I ran out of time and money. I have to constantly keep the BillWhittle.com content spinning. And then we were spending money, and I'm working on this D is for Dungeon thing, and I'm giving it everything I got. I'm just going as fast as I can, trying to get this thing out the door, but also getting it out the door the way I wanted it, so I didn't have to apologize for it. And basically what's happened in the last 2 or 3 months is, since I released that and released Invisible, was I got that thing out there, and just at the time when I was ready to really start promoting this thing and really start to push it, I just simply had to abandon it because we were out of money. And it's just that simple. So I had to jump off of that, jump over to this, and now it's in my interest and their interest, everybody's interest, for me to get this thing done as quickly as possible. I did get a manna from heaven kind of thing. Really, a super pleasant surprise, genuinely pleasant surprise. And that is that they are going to pay me to redo the reread essentially the narration for both the Cold War and America's Forgotten Heroes on camera. And we start shooting that. I think we have a studio walkthrough on Monday, a week from today. Yes. So this will be produced by the person I was talking about. He's extraordinarily capable, very, very good businessman, runs a great company, and delivers top quality product. A week from today, we start shooting the Cold War on camera because it's going to be a video series. And then it's not scheduled yet, but sometime shortly after that, we're going to do the same thing for America's Forgotten Heroes. It's the nature of writing. Well, I suppose it's the nature of my work. Somebody once said of Mark Twain, Ernest Hemingway, who made an earlier appearance in this very show, once said that the thing that was most amazing to him about Mark Twain was that he was a great writer and he was also a great performer. Hemingway said, to me, these things are antithetical. I cannot imagine being able to do both of those things. And I realized, I do both of those things. So in terms of work, in terms of what takes the time and the effort and I don't want to do this, it's the writing. It's the hard work. To me, the presentation is free. It's cake. I sit there on a set and I just read what I wrote off a teleprompter. I have enough of an acting background to make that interesting enough. And since I'm writing it, since I'm the writer, I'm writing for my own cadences. So the fact that I'm shooting both of these things again not only makes me very, very happy because I think both of those series, Cold War and America's Forgotten Heroes, deserved a much wider reach. They've done an amazing job with it, but there's just so much story there that really should be visual. So that's essentially free money. And so it was exceedingly embarrassing and stressful to have spent the last year or so on pushing this animation thing. And then right the second where I can say, that's it, I've made notes and I've gone through this thing with a flea comb and I've gotten every single thing that I couldn't bear to be in this thing out. This is exactly the way I want it. It's perfect. There it is. Ta-da. And then, a week later, 3 days later, now I have to go and just drop this, go over here and do this thing. So that's how it works. And the solution is to hire businessmen and marketing guys and fundraising guys. And now we're stuck in my particular trap, which is in order to do that, I have to have the money to get these people. And in order to get the money to get these people, I have to do this. And so here we are. I've said this several times before. I just think it needs to be said again. I'm not happy about this, not the money thing. I'm not happy about doing everything myself. It's not like I must control everything. My wife accused me of that. Bill, you want to have control over everything? No, I do not. When I saw the work, the video editing and the video, what's the word I'm looking for? The B-roll on Apollo 11. When I saw what the editors, and they had a team of editors, they had 4, 5, 6 guys working on Apollo 11. And when we did the shoot, we had in the studio, we probably had 8 or 10 guys. We had lighting guys, we had sound guys. It's nice to work with people who know what they're doing. But when I saw the first rough cuts of the first episode of Apollo 11, I was blown away by what those editors did. They did so much more than I could have even imagined, let alone accomplished. I was just blown away. This is nirvana for me. This is the holy grail. This is what I'm pursuing. It's not a chance for me to do this all by myself, but to work with people who are better than I am. And when you are working with people who are better than you are, it really does bring out the best in everybody. So Michael, the answer to your question is, if I had to guess specifically of those three options, I would say $5 million would be there. For $500,000, I can, in fact, for considerably less than that, I can put together what I need to crowdsource to the $2, $3, $4, $5 million. But the crowdsourcing thing, just crowdsourcing alone, that requires a person who does probably a small team of people who do nothing but prepare that, because that thing's going to live or die in the first 2 or 3 days. And so that is something I'm going to jump on, hopefully with this other guy, and we'll get on as soon as I get these scripts out the door. I'm tardy on these scripts. Is a word I haven't used in quite a long time. Quite a long time. In fact, I don't think I've said tardy since 1977, the last time when I was in high school. But I'm tardy on these scripts, and the reason I'm tardy on them is that the first script, especially first one or two, are much harder than the other ones. Once you get into Yagoda and Yezhov and Beria, and then Andropov and finally Putin, you've got the terror state built, and now you can just follow that timeline and see what happens as you go. But episodes 1 and 2, this whole Soviet Union hasn't happened yet. The whole thing is like a coalescing disk. The planets haven't formed yet. And so you've got Lenin, and you've got the Civil War, and you've got the Red Terror, and you've got, you've got the move by Zinoviev and Kamenev, and you've got Stalin. You've got all these things in motion. It's just really, really difficult. But I want to do that. Eric Goetz says, why don't you take this to Daily Wire and get them to produce it? I had a conversation about this with Daily Wire. And I'm not going to go into too much detail on it. Certainly that option is still open. But the last time I had a conversation about this, I asked what the best case scenario was. And they said, I don't know, maybe 3 seasons, 6, 8 episodes a season, 18 episodes. No, there's much, 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 much more than that. Much, much more than that available. So, you have your first choice, second choice, third choice, or fourth choice, so on. I'm going for my first choice. If that doesn't work, I'll go to the second and third and so on. So there you go. All right. It's getting a little late, but I feel like I certainly have to do some more. And I'm always much quicker to do questions at billwhittle.com because, again, it's at least something that I can do for the members. We have the most amazing members. Scott Ott and Steve Green and I, we do a backstage show for members only for the trifecta, for the right angle shows. And that's generally about an hour long, and it's just us spitballing stuff, and gets seen by 300-400 people, and they like it because it's really kind of fun behind the scenes. But we also have a 10-20 minutes before we record the backstage show, which is kind of the backstage show. And that's when we just are getting our cameras and lights set up and stuff. And again and again and again and again and again, the three of us cannot believe the quality of the membership here. And what I mean by that especially is we did, the plan for Right Angle was to do 3 shows, one from me, one from Steve, one from Scott, plus a members only show, which we would rotate. And we did that. And the members, this is one of the membership perks that we were given to members. Here's an episode for you. The members said, we don't want it behind this membership firewall. Get it out there. It's all good. Here's your special cookie. No, it's all right. Just go out and share it. It's astonishing, really. Eric says, any new firewalls? I mentioned earlier in this show that I've got something very simple and important. It's a breakdown to the national anthem, and I can blow that silver trumpet and get it done there, I think. So I will work on that. But that's pretty much it. So let me do, I guess I can feel my voice starting to go. That's news. I thought I got that fixed. Henry Lumley says that the link from D is for Dungeon goes to the old version of the animation. I find that I did actually delegate that, but Okay. I will fix that while I'm uploading this show. Cody Mills. This is nice because it's very simple. Bill, 2 quick questions for you. Number 1, could you post a link for the midterm betting website in the description of the Stratosphere Lounge video? I can never find it. And then 2, thoughts on Julius Caesar. Cody, I don't know if you're watching this. If you can ask me that on Thursday when we do the Stratosphere Lounge, I will try to have it done in advance. I can try to post it on this, but I've got a couple of other links I need to put in there, and it's more of a political question. Let's see. I'm going to do just one more here because I can feel my voice starting to go a little bit. Let's see. Trying to spread the affections as wide as I can here. You know what? I'm gonna. Henry Lumley has been amazing at just taking care of this forum thing. So he's going to get the last one. I can feel my voice starting to go now, and I don't want to. I don't want to push it. Henry Lumley. Hey, Bill, I saw an old article last weekend saying that several years ago, Bryan Singer was tapped as director for a movie called Uprising that would have been an on-screen adaptation of Robert Heinlein novel, The Moon is a Harsh Mistress. I was wondering your thoughts on that novel and who you would choose for that adaptation. Also, if you could have Starship Troopers remade much closer to the novel, who would you choose for that movie? I've had so many people tell. I've not read The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, and I've had so many people tell me I need to, and I do need to. I've just been crazy busy. I did read Starship Troopers many years before the movie came out, and I remember thinking that this fundamental idea of Starship Troopers made perfect sense to me, and that fundamental idea is that the people who should only the people who are willing to lay their life down for their society should have a voice in saying where that society is going. That's basically it. Starship Troopers is about the vote only going to veterans. And when I first saw that, I thought, man, that's a compelling argument. I've had second thoughts about that particular aspect of it, but the ethos of it to me is really important. Just as a quick aside, there used to be a poll tax, or you used to have a certain amount of wealth in order to vote, and everybody, of course, on the left just goes completely haywire over that. Well, it's racist. It's all the ists and phobics. But the idea was, there was an idea behind it, and the idea was, if you could only vote if you had money, you wouldn't vote yourself money out of the treasury. And this is the end of a democracy. Once people realize they can vote themselves money from other people, it's all over. And we are well down that road. Well down that road now. And ownership of land, right? So that's what the kind of the motivation was for that. Anyway, so I haven't seen Moon as a Harsh Mistress, but Starship Troopers I did see, and I thought Starship Troopers was really, really good. I was thinking about who would I cast in it. What's the name of the guy who's the commander? I don't know who I would cast as Rico. I really like Channing Tatum. I think he's probably too old for this. I really like him. There's just something about him. First thing I saw him in was the Eagle. He's a Roman soldier, and he's one of my favorite actors out there. I have to tell you, Michael Ironside's, yeah. What was the name of the guy? Somebody's Roughnecks before they became Rico's Roughnecks. Neil McDonough's great. Yeah, he's fantastic. Razchik. You know who who has really surprised me in terms of really being convincing as a soldier is actually Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt is a movie star, but Brad Pitt is also a really fine actor, and in Fight Club he really pulled off the tough guy thing, and in Inglourious Bastards I believed him, but I thought he was absolutely great in Fury, just great in Fury. I think Fury is a great movie, and I thought he was real good in World War Z as well. There's something about him that's got a kind of toughness and a kind of charisma, but he pulls it off, man. Brad Pitt really does that. Fiery Waco and Twitch says Paul Verhoeven tried very hard to make Starship Troopers look fascist but failed. My understanding is that Verhoeven had an idea to do this kind of thing, and somebody convinced him to call it Starship Troopers because it was an existing property, and certainly when you see the movie version, you are meant to think that this whole idea of the military is a joke. And the reason, there's many reasons you can tell that he thinks it's a joke. And the standout reason is the logo, that eagle, that stupid looking eagle. All of that, kind of faux seriousness and stuff. It's a serious question. I will. I'm going to end this show with something somewhat related to that, and that is, this idea of this, existential fight against aliens. I had a really interesting discussion with Jeremy Boring about this. It wasn't Starship Troopers. We were talking about Ender's Game, and here's the discussion. In Ender's Game, this alien race starts this war, and they're out to kill us all. And then at the end of Ender's Game, we find out that Ender has essentially exterminated them. He thinks he's playing a simulation. Turns out that the games he's playing are actually really happening. It's a terrific novel. But Jeremy and I got into a discussion about this, and the discussion was, if there was a species out there that was trying to wipe you out, would you be justified in exterminating them? And I said, hell yes. And he said, no, you can't do that. I said, don't tell me I can't do that. Of course I could do that. Yes, I 100% think that that you should just wipe them out. Jeremy said, no, you cripple them, make sure they're not a threat anymore, but extermination is just morally wrong. And I really thought about it, and I still think about it. I find that to be a really, really, really interesting question. There's no question that morally you need to win the war. And just in terms of being smart, people trying to kill you, you want to keep them down. Winston Churchill said, between when World War II was starting, he said that's the thing about the Germans, they're either at your feet or at your throat. And so, yeah, but I don't know. Now I'm gonna admit something here that I was determined I was never going to admit, because it's really bad for my brand, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's just been where my head has been. It's related to this subject. So I am a well-known animal lover, and I'm the kind of guy, if there's a bird with a broken wing in the backyard, I'll spend 45 minutes, drive it out to the California Wildlife Center, who I make regular donations to, and I'm that guy, right? I'm a real, I just really like animals, love animals, and had a soft spot for raccoons and that whole thing. And so I've never had any interest in hunting, and I still don't have any interest in hunting. But this is the thing I really can't even believe I'm admitting this. But I would love to go to Texas and exterminate those feral pigs. I have seen a lot of those videos, and I hate those bastards. I hate them. And I often ask myself, I couldn't shoot a deer, I could. If I had somebody said shoot a deer, I could do it, but I wouldn't go hunting for deer, because I just think they're beautiful animals and so on. But when I see a field full of those hogs, man, and every time there's more and more and more of them, Beaker says, if you're starving, of course, I'm not I'm not an anti-hunting guy. It's just not for me, right? It's just not. That's all there is to it. But when I see those hogs in that field, I just want to start shooting. I really just want to start shooting. They are helicopter or on the ground. Good question. They're both really fun. But the ones I watch the most are with the thermal scopes. You know, you're just basically standing there, and they take the first shot. Usually they drop the alpha sow, and then they all just start running. And I think I would be very good at this. Now, I'll tell you why. Not because I'm a hunter or because I'm a particularly good shot, neither one of those two things. I had never shot skeet in my life until 2017. And then I was hitting 9 out of 10 consistently and often hitting 10 out of 10. So how is that? Well, I realized the reason I was good at skeet shooting was because I have something like 10,000 hours in flight sims. At least that, I would say. I have 10,000 hours in flight sims from World War I to space combat. So I am really, really good at leading a target. That's really something I have gotten to be very, very good at. Where is it? I just saw it over here. Fiery Waco said he's looked into pig hunting, but the places I found wanted me to pay them for the privilege of helping them out. I couldn't agree with you more. Some of these things are like $8,000 or something, you know. If you're going to shoot from a helicopter, okay, fine. But the idea that somebody's charging you, what that leads me to believe is you can make, if you're a Texas farmer and you're charging people to come and shoot feral hogs on your property, you might make more money in the tourism business than you do in the farming business. So you've actually got incentive to allow, you don't want these things down. So look, I'm not a hunter and I don't want to be a hunter. This isn't hunting. This is pest control. And I just would love to just blow those things away. Is that, have we gotten ourselves a little, yeah, we got a raid. Fantastic. Hey, look at that. So here, of all the strange things we're talking about hunting feral pigs in Texas and stuff. And I am a huge animal lover, and I want to do this real bad. I really do. When you see those fields full of these hogs, when you see the damage that these hogs will do, they're just walking, eating machines. And I just, every time I look at one of these videos, and I think I've seen pretty much every single one of them, I just want to blast those things because I can do the math, right? Because I can add and multiply. Those little cute little piglets that kind of go pop when you hit them. In 3 to 4 months, they will be sexually mature. So you get this geometric growth. I remember seeing in the early days, you'd see, a field with 6, 7, 8 hogs. Now you see 60, 70 of them there, and you'll see a family of 50 of them. And the people who know about these things say you have to take 70% of them in order to maintain the population. And there are no natural predators. This is not where they belong. They're an invasive species. I heard another guy say, and this kind of shocked me, but nevertheless it still makes perfect sense to me, that feral pigs are the most reproductively successful large mammals on the planet. And they are. And when I look and see these videos, and I see hundreds of these things, all these different sizes, and they're like, somebody's got to do something about this. And I don't feel any sympathy for them. I got to say again, if there's the raccoon in my backyard with a broken foot, I'm driving 45 minutes to get him to the animal hospital. I just don't have any desire to kill animals, but I have a burning desire to exterminate these things. It's something really deep. It's something really, really deep. When I see them, there's something about a feral hog running that makes me just see red. And there's something about their mouth, something about that round mouth of theirs, that mouth. There's something about that hog mouth that just makes me insane. Insane. just keep them coming. Just hand me the reloads. And it'd be nice to go to Texas and be able to shoot an AR-15 that didn't have a 10-round magazine like the man babies that legislate these things out here in California. These scopes, I took a look at these scopes, the thermal scopes. They're $4,000, $5,000, some of these things. But the one thing I noticed about watching the videos on YouTube is that dot or that crosshairs is perfectly on them, right? So that scope, I'm assuming, I know that a lot of them have laser rangefinders, so I'm assuming that scope is doing the math and correcting. I think I don't know this because I haven't dealt with one, but I'm virtually positive that you need to tell the scope what kind of ammunition you're shooting, what the feet per second is, and so on. It laser rangefinds out to the target, calculates the amount of bullet drop, and then adjusts the crosshairs, because I have seen these guys plunk little things like this at 200 yards, and it's always with the dot right on them. So somebody somewhere is doing the drop in the wind calculations, and I assume it's the software in these thermal scopes, because my God. Radzilla. Now, Radzilla knows what he's talking about. 300 blackout and a suppressor with subsonic ammo. Whisper quiet. Just goes click, 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 like that. Even the little baby piglets, which normally I would be, oh, they're so cute, you know. And you see one when somebody holds one and we caught one live and you see it, oh, it's so cute. And I would be thinking, oh, I probably would just pet it, you know. And then I see them grow up. And then I see how many of them there are. And then I say, pop them all. Now, one other thing has influenced my my sudden bloodthirstiness when it comes to pigs. I visited a friend of mine who has a farm up in Washington, and he's got all kinds of stuff there: yaks, and he's got a donkey, and all kinds of stuff. Buffalo. I loved them all. Thought they were great. Thought they were absolutely great, and I not only didn't want to hurt them, I just wanted to brush and powder their little hair and file their nails down and paint their little hooves pink and put them to bed and throw a blanket over them. But he had 3 hogs there, and these were farm hogs that were easily 800 pounds. I've seen the big hogs out on the plains, 400 or 500 pound hogs. These were easily 600-700 pound hogs. And I have never, ever in my life seen an animal so disgusting as those hogs. Because we fed all those animals for a couple days I was up there. Fantastic. But when I saw those hogs, I just thought, my God, this is the most repulsive creature I have ever seen, ever. They're just lying there in the mud in their own crap, and they eat anything. He's handing them watermelon rinds, right? Rinds. Just hands it to him. Just like a garbage disposal. This is essentially what it is. And then, boom. But when I saw the damage that they do to the farms and to people's yards and all the rest of it, and those tusks and stuff, I'm sorry. I have gotten over, in this particular case, I would blast every single one of them. Blast them away. And every time I watch these videos, which I've been doing obsessively lately, I see there's like a sounder. That's a word I didn't know until 3 weeks ago. There's a sounder of hogs out there. Let's say there's 15 of them, right? Big alpha sow and a couple of big boars, and then kind of medium-sized ones and adolescents, and the tiny little piglets. And there's 20. And these guys have 2 300s, and they say, all right, ready? 3, 2, 1, bang. And both of the biggest hogs drop, and everything else scatters. And with very, very few exceptions, they get 3 out of 20, 4, maybe 5 out of 20. They got to get 15 out of 20 to just hold that population steady. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And I could not agree more with what you said earlier. I would love to go do it. I actually talked to Jeremy about doing it. I thought it'd be kind of a manly, kind of fun thing to do. Not in a gay way, just go out, shoot some pigs, take a shower together, that kind of thing. Nothing gay about that. First time chat from Awakening. Bacon! Boom! And so I think we'll probably end up doing it. And I have no problem with cleaning up either. I don't particularly want to gut them. But, you can't just leave those pigs out there. And part of the stuff is you got to pick them up and chuck them onto the back of a truck. They're fast. Again, it's kind of fun to talk about because it's a relatively new experience for me. Some people, whenever they see a deer or something, that they get that lock. I used to be that way with lizards in South Florida. They have lots and lots of these little lizards. And when we got BB guns, air guns, my brother Steve and I, there was not a lizard anywhere within 200 yards of our property. These little things, we would plink them off at 100 yards. We were just dead shots. I just, no mercy for them. And that's how I feel about these things. There's something about a running pig that makes me just want to pull a trigger. I don't know what it is. It's something about them. But when they really start hightailing it, it's like I know exactly where to put this round. I know exactly where to put this round. And by the way, I've also learned where you shoot these things. I thought you shoot them in the head, but I guess their skulls are too thick. I've never seen anybody intentionally do a headshot on a pig. They always get them right at the base of the neck. They're pretty much trying to go through, get the heart and stuff. And mostly just the big ones just go down. And then everything else scatters. And I'm watching guys, some of these guys are really good, but most of them aren't because they're farmers, I guess. And I'm watching these guys in the scope, and then it's like, okay, so they'll pick up one, and then he kind of runs, and they'll see another one, and it's like, stay on target, man. Lock your target, and take that, and then get the next one. And I see so many of these things get away. And I'm thinking, that's not good enough. It's not good enough. Did I say 100 yards with a BB gun? Maybe it was a little less than that. But nevertheless, they're tiny little targets. And tink, 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 we're knocking those things down. Anyway, yep, that's definitely not the brand, and my wife doesn't know about this yet. If she's watching, then she knows. But yeah, I would do that. And last thing, by the way, I've seen people use shotguns, and I've even seen people use fully automatic weapons. I've seen people go after pigs with an M60, a real machine gun. And I've seen guys use fully automatic fire and miss everything. Now I know why they don't make the fully auto thing on the M4s anymore, because full auto it's a joke. It's just a joke. But I'm watching them, and these things are destroying everything. And when they start going, and I'm watching these guys just like tracking. He's got probably 30 rounds in an AR or something like that. I'm thinking, are you going to wait for this pig to graduate college? For God's sakes, put some rounds down. The guys who are effective are shooting all the time. Pink, tink, tink. And some of these guys are hitting these little things at insane distances. They're running as fast as these guys are leading it. A little more lead. There it is. Bam. I don't know. But I could pick them up. And throw them in a truck. I'm not going to be one of those, LA art fags that comes out there and says, I don't want to get I just want to shoot it and put it up against the fence so it doesn't move. No. Go out there. Somebody flying 2003, I think it's the first time we've seen that name or that I've ever recognized anyway, says used a Barrett 50 cal round. Would you even need to dress it? The whole thing would probably just be missed. Yeah, so this will be the last thing I say about this, because I'm maybe this is like the money thing. I'm not proud of this, but I probably should, because this is the thing that these Rings of Power man babies cannot understand. They can't understand that kind of, it's running. I gotta throw that spear in front of the thing. But the thing about these hogs are virtually everybody I see doing the shootings using an AR. So that's a relatively small round. And these big hogs will take 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 of these things and just keep running because they've got the mass to absorb it. But when you hit one of these little piglets, they just explode. They just go pop. And I think, yeah, pop some more. Pop some more. Blow those little bastards up before they grow up. Just take them out. I'd use phasers, but I don't want to set the field on fire. Don't waste the meat, man. Anybody know what they do with these things? Because I've seen them haul, honest to God, in fact, just before the show, I was watching a new one. This guy got 6 of the 350, 400-pound hogs, 2,100 pounds of hogs in 6 individuals. That's a ton. That's a ton of meat. It's an actual, genuine ton. What do they do with it? I don't know what they do with them. Everybody here's saying they're delicious. They usually donate them. That's good. That actually makes me feel much better, to be perfectly honest with you. That makes me feel not only better, makes me feel good. They go to people to eat them. That's fantastic. All right, I'm in. And by the way, I've been looking at. Don't tell Natasha this either. I've been flying for 6 years now, but I'm also looking at. What is it? It's a foreign name, so I have to look it up. Shh. This is weird. This one we have to keep quiet. Hang on. Where'd it go? I can't find it, but I'm going to search. I'm also eyeing. Where is it? I'll get there eventually. Hang on. I hate it when I do this. It just time slows to a complete crawl for me. It must be just agony for you guys. Sorry, let's try this. Come on. All right. Last chance. Last chance. Last chance. I don't see it. All right. It's a... oh, there it is. Oh, well, this is the real nice one. This is a Curti Zephyr, but that's not the one I was thinking of. The one I was thinking of is... it's a couple letters. Yep, I'm not going to keep you waiting all day. It's a light helicopter. It's a light. Don't tell anybody. Don't tell Natasha. A light helicopter, and it's not a Robinson. It's beautiful, and having flown 1,000 hours here out of Southern California, I've done flight everywhere that I can fly. So I really like that low. I'd like to do the helicopter thing. I try to find out where the nearest. It's an Italian helicopter, piston powered, and they have some small presence here. And I wanted to find out where the nearest demo flight is. I contacted them and just want to take a ride in it, because it's a wickedly cool looking thing. It's a beauty, and of course I've searched everywhere, and I've seen 10,000 helicopters here, and everything except for that one. It's just a really. Oh, I know why I'm on the wrong channel. Hang on. Everybody hang on. Everybody cool. Everybody be cool. I'll get this if it kills me. Yeah, saying where to go. Hog video, hog video, hog video, hog video, hog video. Just talk amongst yourselves here, because I was looking at it not too long ago. Because I've seen the hog hunting from helicopters video, and that looks cool. But you know, you got a guy flying the Robinson, and guys are got there. It is. There it is. Okay. Here, I'll just use a still. Piston powered. The Zephyr that I talked about is turbine powered, that's the way you fly, especially helicopter. And find one that is exceptionally beautiful, because that'll do. Sure. All right, hang on to your hats here, ladies and gents. This is the Cabri G2. To which I say, woof. Woof. See, if I had something like that, I wouldn't even have to fly it. I'd just go out and sit in it. I really would. I just go out, sit. You feeling a little stressed, Bill? Feeling a little low? Yeah, I'm having a bad day. All right. Well, I just go on out to the back, and and sit in the helicopter. That's a fine-looking machine, and if it looks good, it flies good. That's a known fact. Anyway, the turbine one is a 240 horsepower downrated to 140 horsepower, which means you got a lot of reserve power. It means it's just wonderful. But a helicopter can glide, believe it or not. And if they couldn't glide, no one would be flying them. They'd be death machines. But I've done first flight training I ever took, even before gliders, was in a helicopter. So you do a full-on auto rotation, and you can put it into a flower garden. And I want one, which means I got to work harder. I have to work harder. That's how it works, kids. You want something expensive, you got to work harder. All right. I think I'd look good in one. I think I would wear it well. And I think that'd be an excellent way for me to arrive at events. Speaking events or whatever the case may be. I just fly it. I'll need a little clearing so I can land. And if it turns out we end up vacating the premises here and go someplace where there's, move back to America, then you can actually fly that thing places, and you don't get people calling the cops on you all the time. Bill should have a dirigible. I do have a dirigible. I have a stealth dirigible that I use when most nights I wait till after midnight on a moonless night, and I take my stealth dirigible up and I fly over Los Angeles. I'm wearing a red velvet smoking jacket, and I've got a fez, and all the fittings are brass. And I've got a large speaker. It's very steampunk, and I just fly over Hollywood. You people are all idiots. You're idiots. You're richer than Midas, and you all talk about how much you hate money. I think all of you should jump off of the edge of your buildings right now. It's been in the papers, but I guess people are getting used to it. All right. Yes, I will do that. Anyway, the reason I thought of helicopters was because you see these guys hanging out the door of a R-22. And I thought, yeah, that's not bad. But you could just mount a couple of AR-15s. Kind of a gunship thing going. Couldn't do that in California because people would have a heart attack, but you could probably get away with it in Texas as long as you didn't hurt anybody. All right. We're out of here. Hey, guess what? This show and all the others is made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com. A small group of people who managed to overcome every effort I have to not take their money, and who make all of this possible, and to whom all of us are extremely grateful. I've got an early shoot tomorrow. We're doing the right angles a couple hours earlier so that I can get my hairified, so I look good when we do the Cold War series. So that'll do it. So until then, keep your powder dry. Keep a lookout for those corn bandits, and And I guess we will see you Thursday for Stratosphere Lounge. We'll see you next Monday right here on the Stratosphere Studio. Good night.